I enjoy all of them. And then everybody's sort of like talking about something similar from a different angle, right? And I feel like I was sort of creating a buffet of spirituality and personal development.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakhiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Mindvalley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Yuki Yoshii. He is the founder of Satori Mindset Institute, which specializes in the embodiment of soul alignment and soul purpose ascension. Today, we're going to talk about that and much more. And Yuki, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, JP.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I love what you're doing. Aligns with a lot of my thoughts, beliefs, the things I'm trying to do. And so today, this conversation should be great. Usually, I just love to begin with, tell us a little bit more about yourself and maybe how did you end up in this space?
Yeah, I can share the longer version or shorter version of that. It's been a path for me. I grew up suffering from asthma. So the world was a difficult place for me to live because if you are not able to breathe, right, that is the perception that I form what the world is and about myself. So I started my life struggling with everything. And that was actually when I was living in Peru. So I'm originally from Tokyo, but I grew up in Peru. So you might catch some of my Spanish accent, actually. So I lived there for about 9 years, and I moved to Tokyo at the age of 11. And I think intuitively sort of felt like there was something more than the visible world. So I was tapping into the invisible realm at the early stage, moving from one continent to another, from one culture to a completely different one, like a developing country to a very developed country. So that sort of led me to not be in the box, but I was sort of like outside of the box. I always felt like I was an outsider. Like, I don't know if you have any, your audience, anybody resonate with this sort of feeling that you don't belong to fully in a certain communities, because for me, what people were interested in felt like a little surface space. I was looking for more of the depth and the juiciness of the internal stuff, which led me to wake up into the spiritual path at the age of 17. That's the time that I started my first career as a dancer. I danced professionally in Tokyo. And then I didn't like school, right? I didn't feel like the study that I was receiving in school was beneficial for life. So my real school was a bookstore that I was going after school. And I mean, the very first book that I discovered though was at the part-time, but then I went to a bookstore, and then the first series of the books that I read was Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. Yeah. And then Neil Donald Walsh, Conversation with God. I read every single one of his books. Like,
when you're like 17, 18?
Yeah, wait. So when I was 17, he was publishing Conversation with God #1. So I was going when he was publishing. I'm not really sure if the publication in Japan was later than the US, but I was there as Celestine Prophecy, and right next to it, Neil Donald Walsh, and that's the opening of my spiritual path.
That's a pretty high place to start. When you said Peru, I wrote down Celestine Prophecy.
Oh,
That's a great book. And just when you're saying Peru, I'm thinking there's certain parts on the planet that are emanating or vibrating really high, and Peru seems like one of those places. But those are great books. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. And then I moved to Los Angeles for dance, and I had a bulging disc chronic back stuff. So then I shifted to do things like yoga, Pilates, so movement, but more of the holistic, mindful type of stuff. And I was always interested in psychology, spirituality, right? So here I had clients and people are struggling with stress and, the negative thoughts. And then from there, that led me to go to holistic health education, graduate school in holistic health education. That took me to San Francisco. So I went to a school studying holistic health, consciousness, spirituality, and I feel like the whole journey that I have been, JP, I feel like I'm the one who just is connecting dots, right? So it's important for me to resonate with me deeply. And I have stepped into different industry, personal development, spirituality, mindfulness, holistic health. And I feel like I'm sort of picking things that resonate with me to create some framework around how actually we're supposed to be living in this earth plane. So yeah, I think I have come to that place that I can present that clearly. There are many people who are stuck, and I meet people who are very unclear with lack of clarity seems to be huge for a lot of people. This feeling that there's something more to life, something is missing. You can have like gratification of the external achievement or some fun stuff, nothing wrong with having fun, but then internally it needs to align. Yeah. So
Authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity. Yeah. So I do have an academic background that enables me to articulate and explain stuff. But then outside of that, I was into personal development. So I was with Jack Canfield. I was with Bob Proctor. And then I was at some point a consultant with Bob. And then started to create my own stuff, blending a lot of the stuff that I have gone through.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you're taking like the science and the spirituality, marrying them together, coming up with your own framework, which is huge for authenticity and creativity, but also it allows you to resonate and connect with people. And I'm sure that means some people aren't for you. That's fine. There's lots of coaches, but the people that are connected, they're going to get the most benefit from you.
Yeah. And the most beautiful part of this, JP, is that I have a lot of teachers, like spiritual teachers, right? I was influenced by Don Miguel Ruiz. I was influenced by Eckhart Tolle. I was influenced by Gary Zukav. I was influenced by, of course, Neil, James Redfield, all those spiritual teachers. Also, people from personal development, right? I love Neville Goddard. I don't know if you're familiar with Neville Goddard, Wayne.
Everyone, all the people you're saying, I'm right there. Michael Singer, I got Wayne Dyer. It's all there. We're in the right spot.
Right. So I enjoy all of them. And then everybody's sort of like talking about something similar from a different angle, right? And I feel like I was sort of creating a buffet of spirituality and personal development and picking and choose and creating a plate that works for me. But the beautiful thing that I wanted to tell you is that when I work with people, even when I do presentation or all that, one of the things that I want to really make sure that is that people do not need to believe what I'm saying. Yeah. Because it's not about downloading my framework to them, but it's supposed to challenge their existing belief to expand, and they can pick and choose just like I did for every single teacher. And I want people to create their own truth that works for them, that meet their desire, right? So people have different kind of desire. Some people want more material stuff. Others don't want that minimalist, but then want peace of mind, right? People have different desire. And I think the work here is to really expand the truth for you, the relative truth for you, the belief. So it meets your desire.
Yes.
And it doesn't need to be the same
Focus.
as, yeah, it doesn't need to be the same as mine at all.
100%. What we focus on expands. That's the tagline for this podcast. And that's the
Okay.
reason why. And I feel the same. Like all those authors, mentors, teachers that we learn from, we distill it down into what works for us. And then we have this plethora of tools that we can share with people. And like, okay, you don't want the spirituality. I'm going to give you something else. I'll give you more science-based stuff. Some people are like that. But the idea of creating your own evidence and learning from your own path, then it doesn't matter what anyone else says afterwards. It's like, this is what I did. I set out to do it, and I create the evidence along the way. And now I'm the expert in the field.
Exactly. It's your own life. So you create your own one. Yeah.
That's awesome. And now psychology is like getting bigger and bigger, but also mental health problems are getting more and more from all sorts of things, from social media, young people feeling hopeless about the future, just the amount of information coming at us at so fast that wasn't there 20, 30 years ago. And so I'm wondering, with your psychology background, do you see this, and how can someone step back, pause, or kind of deal with that influx of information that's just nonstop coming at us, which can cause anxiety, depression, and other things?
Yeah. And I do feel like that tendency that we have through technology is creating a lot of the internal comparison for people, right? The self-esteem and the self-image, which Neville talks about, the concept of self. And I think it's interesting that we're talking about this because this morning I saw a post on Instagram, I think, how the last 100 years, what people spend time with has changed, and technology was way low. And right now it's more than 60% technology, next friends and, families and all that. And yeah, it's good to, connect with people. Like, for instance, without technology, we cannot do this, right? But I think it doesn't need to be diminish the attention and the personability. So Neil talks about how can we balance technology and cosmology. That's the language that Neil uses.
Yeah. Or does he call them HEBs, highly evolved beings?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Those teachers you list are all great teachers, and some of the books are really good books, like in my favorites. You didn't say Think and Grow Rich, but I'm assuming it's right up there. But maybe about yourself, you have your own book, and I love the title of it, but do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So actually, Soul Purpose Insights. By the way, speaking of Napoleon Hill, I'm more a fan of Outwitting the Devil. Yeah.
Okay, let's go into that. Why is that? Because I am too. I just read this book recently, and I'm like, whoa.
So I feel like Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil talks about the subconscious fear-based energy that people get trapped by, right? He talks about the opposition of God, right? The devil. And I mean, the way that he shared that and speaks about that is what described the world, right? And it's very interesting, though, not to mean to bring different people, but Marion Williamson,
Yeah.
she says that fear doesn't come from that infinite intelligence or God. Fear is a mental construct. So the hypnotic rhythm that, Outwitting the Devil talks about and the habit of drifting, it's interesting because, I mean, speaking of the soul purpose insights, I often talk about, JP, there are only two things that prevents people from evolving or living their true self. And one is fear, the survival mind. Yeah. And two is the familiar self, the past, present self. So when somebody, I mean, we all know that if you want to create a different kind of life outside, we need to change inside, right? So the change in life doesn't happen until we change the inside. The outside is the mirror of our inside, let's say energetics. And we get caught up into this pattern, right? Pattern of being influenced by the external contrast. Is that a common language for your audience? Contrast?
I think so, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the perceived negativity in the outside. And
Cognitive
also,
dissonance.
yeah. And then there's a past present version of us that is very familiar that people get stuck. So because I had that sort of like a framework and perspective, or those are the two things, and then Outwitting the Devil exactly talks about that. So that's why I like that book.
Thank you. I love it. So the reason I like it is because, and I love the other book, by the way, Think and Grow Rich is my favorite book. I've read it probably 15 times. I highlighted more than any other book. But Outwitting the Devil seems like it's made for right now, like this moment in history. And also, as far as like writing, you would appreciate just the way that he thought of like, hey, I'm going to put the devil on the witness stand and he can't lie to me. And this is what a way to write a book, right?
Yeah. It's a fun book, right? But you know the story of that book, that he actually wrote that book maybe like a year or 2 years. He published Thinking Grow Rich, but he didn't publish until way later.
Yeah, he couldn't probably, right? He would get burned at the stake if he did that.
Yeah. Because of the way he positioned things in the book.
When you talk about fear, and Marianne Williamson, the quote that comes to mind is, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
Yeah, exactly. The ego fears your true essence.
And that's what you're trying to teach people now is like, you have power. You don't need anyone to tell you that, and just help them believe in that.
Yeah. It has a lot to do with recognizing the stories in the mind and then begin tapping into who you are instead of living from the place of who you are not.
And what does that look like? How do we do that? For me, I have one is like, be curious, almost think like and feel like a child. These kind of things help. But you have any other ideas?
Yeah. So the very first step for this process of self-transformation that I suggest to people is to begin observing the voice in the head, the inner dialogue. Because if you have a voice in the head, in your conscious mind, you will have a feeling tonality in your subconscious that is congruent with it, right? So you cannot be feeling positive while you're talking negative, right? So when you begin noticing that is the first step. And then you cannot be the thoughts and be observing your thoughts at the same time. So the more you observe your thoughts, you're detaching you from the story, and that is the first step. But here's the interesting, funny part. People who are on this path, people want to feel expansive, and people don't want to dwell on the negativity and all that. And they practice, right, the mindfulness and meditation and observing your inner dialogue. And they're doing good. They're doing good for a week. They're doing good for a month, right? And something happens. Something happens that triggers that emotion. There's a volcano, right? The frustration or whatever the pattern. And then they start judging themselves that they were doing good, but I now drifted back. So it's interesting. Did you say curiosity?
Yeah, curiosity.
Yeah. So that's actually exactly what I teach too. When you observe your mind, you want to really own the identity of curiosity, because if you judge yourself that you just thought negative thoughts, you are now inside of the mind again by thinking so, right? So you cannot be judgmental and curious at the same time. So in order to remove that judgment, because the mind wants to compare and describe and to have an opinion and judge about something. Those are the nature of the mind. And we don't need to try to change that. We want to step back and observe that. Then we're not those, right? So I often also suggest to make your inner dialogue a third person. Oh, he's doing this or she's doing this. Yeah. So you can really begin disassociating from all those stories that's not serving you. So that's the first step, right? If you cannot observe, you're being absorbed by it. So practicing observing what the mind is saying is the very first step.
Yeah, I agree. Awareness. So the Untethered Soul, a book, Michael Singer, he talks about this, and the idea that if you're observing your mind, then you're not the mind. That's a good starting place right there. And when you're talking about thoughts, like you can't have competing thoughts, right? You can't have love and hate in the exact same thought. A good one when you're watching the mind, some people refer to it as a monkey mind. It just keeps going, jumping around. Just say something to yourself and watch. Your mind will tell you the opposite, right? Like, I love this. And your mind, no, you don't. You don't really like that. You know, like, or like, I'm going to run 10 kilometers. No, you're not. You can't do that. And whatever you say, your mind will tell you the opposite. It just wants to like talk and compete with you. And the idea of familiarity or living in the past, it's really easy to get stuck there. Anyone who's been in chronic pain would know this one, but I used to take 33 pills a day for a tumor in my spine. And every day I was wiring myself for pain. In the morning, I would wake up and take a bunch of pills. Then at noon, and more pills. Afternoon, more pills. Bedtime, more pills. Every day I was wiring that into me that I'm sick and I need pills. And then the next morning, I would do it all over again. So once we can detach from that and realize that the I, the self, you're talking about the power of now, or you didn't say that, but Eckhart Tolle, there's the I, me, my, or we, they, them, us. And once you take it off you, whatever you focus on expands. So if you're thinking I, me, my, you might be living in a hell that you've designed, where once you start focusing on others and how can I serve other people, then everything begins to shift.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people in the world are just yet aware of that awareness. Yeah. Many people live from the place of who they are not, and they are not aware of who they are.
Why is it?
Because people around them are not aware either. So when you come to this earth plane and when you begin interacting with people who are not aware, because we become the product of our environment, you know, so you get sort of consumed by the lies, right? But then deep inside, you know who you are. All of us deep inside knows who we are. But then there is this pattern of wanting to conform, wanting to be similar with how people are operating, and they don't prioritize focusing on their heart's desire and what's inside of them, right?
Partly because of fear, and partly I think there must be an evolutionary trait where, like, if you went against the tribe or if you didn't agree with the tribe, you might get kicked out of the tribe and you need the tribe.
Yeah, I mean, Japan definitely had that cultural background, but also though, one piece that I want to mention, if I may, is is your audience or are you familiar with Daniel Siegel? So interpersonal neurobiology. So in the spiritual and the personal development work, I incorporate a lot of his stuff where we are individual bodies and we have individual mind to think. But the concept of self and the self-image that Neville talks about, Bob Proctor talks about, is always born through the relationship. So, we are born, right? And then we grow and we stand and we walk and we become individual. The process of individuality is being shaped through the environment. So the language that I like to use is, well, we're not really individual, but we are sort of like an intravisual where we shape our identity based on others, right? And the example that I often give is, imagine that you're living in an island by yourself without anybody else. Who are you becoming? Who can you become there without any context? Like you are a mother because of the child, right? You are a son or daughter because you have a mother. So you cannot have, like, you're, podcast host because you have an audience and you have people who come. You cannot form your identity without the existence of others. And it's kind of interesting, right? That is important.
Yeah.
So we want to blend in because of that.
Yeah, we call it like hats, different hats, lenses.
Yeah.
And the most recent one I saw someone do, they said, write down all the things you are on a sticky note. So I'm a father. And then they put it on. I'm a son. All the things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, this is what you think you are, but you're none of it. Like, it's all an illusion.
Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah. Maybe the energy side a bit more, because I love the energy side. So do you incorporate anything in your work like Reiki or any of these energy things, modalities, Jose Silva method, anything like that?
No, not really. But interesting though. I do have a body work background. So a part of the yoga and movement stuff, I immersed myself in learning a modality called neuromuscular therapy. So I can treat people's pain through my hands, which is sort of like a history for me now, because I'm more focusing on this soul alignment, embodiment of the soul alignment. But I do feel like,
are you touching the person or no?
Yeah, touching in person.
Okay. I didn't know if you meant like doing it without touching them physically or, okay. That's energy still.
Yeah. I don't do any distance healings and all that, but more a manual therapy physically, right? In person, which I used to do. Yeah. But I think energy, we cannot separate ourselves from energy. So every single call that I conduct, every single space that I create is an energy work. And I never feel like I'm the one who is creating. Yeah, I'm just holding the space to co-create the shared experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's important to realize that it's not you. It's the whole thing is all, I don't know, like interconnectedness.
Yeah.
So how about your actual coaching now? I know I was checking you out. You got a lot of free stuff that people can jump on, and can you talk about that?
Yeah. So the main places that I'm at right now is Instagram and school. I am gonna bump up YouTube soon. But I think doing this work, JP, like, it's interesting. By doing it, you start crafting more what it is that you're doing, right? And then your clients teach you what is it that you're doing, right? You get all the feedback, not because what they say, but because of what you see in them, that you get feedback. Oh, this is actually what I'm doing, right? So even the last 3-4 years, I feel like doing the events, doing the calls with clients, things evolve. Like, I have so many mentors and books and information that I read, but I always tell this: the place that I have learned and grow the most spiritually is me being with clients.
Yeah.
And by expressing it. And then, like, I just did the Soul Purpose Ascension 5 days workshop last week. Yeah. I often don't prepare too much for those. It just comes through me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any
So,
writer would know that.
yeah. And I love about that, right? I sometimes get surprised what comes out of my own mouth.
Who said that?
Yeah. Did I really say that? Yeah. And then even when I go back to the recording, what did I say there? Right. But it's interesting. That's how I expanding myself. So school is a platform. We have a very great group from around the world, and everybody who is in the group is dedicated to embody the soul alignment. Yeah. So be in touch with that essence, and then to expand your belief. And then we have all the free stuff. The Soul Purpose Ascension workshop is going to be evergreen there as a $37. If you upgrade to VAP, I don't like to say VIP because everybody's important, but VAP is very abundant person. You get to take the abundant session that we did. So because many people tend to focus on a lack. Yeah. That's a habitual tendency. So different practices that navigate people to pay attention to abundance. And then if people really want to dive into transform their life, the signature thing is a 8-month self-realization path.
Nice.
Yeah.
Discovery. So something I want to point out is that the books the authors are talking about, Neville Goddard, Napoleon Hill, Joe Dispenza, all the people whose focus is on growth, positivity, high frequency vibrations. If you can rewire, anybody listening to this, you can rewire yourself for this. And that's the way to do it, is listen to all that. Instead of filling your head with CNN and this blue against red or whatever it is, stop filling your head, because we're doing it anyway, right? And so the more news you watch, you ever see anything happy on the news? It doesn't sell, so they don't sell it. But we can rewire it. And so, like, I don't know, one thing I do, I purposely brainwash myself with, I don't know, you know Tom Bilyeu, Impact Theory?
Yeah, sure.
So he has these audios and they got music behind it, but it's like the kind of stuff you would listen to at the gym, right? I think it's called Fearless Motivation. But I purposely like listen to these audios and intentionally brainwash myself for success. And it works because your brain doesn't know what's the difference between what's real or not. So you can trick yourself into positivity if you're feeling the other way.
Yeah. And I'm so happy that you're saying that, because the beauty of listening to all those words that I found is that everybody have this inner speech that they're talking about all the time. But if you're listening to that, you're kind of like repeating that in your mind again, and you're not giving yourself a space to think negatively. You're not giving yourself a room to feel disempowered, because your attention and focus is on that expansion.
Yeah, and whatever we focus on expands. And so this works great at nighttime. If you're falling asleep, you just put on one of these. I listen to a channel called Progressive Hypnosis, and it's just this Australian girl. And she's like, "You're great. You're so abundant. Your body's healing itself," over and over again, right? And so even while I'm asleep, this audio's still playing, and I wake up feeling great. And it's just, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, before you go to bed, it's the best time to put things in your subconscious, for sure.
All right. So as we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share. Check out the new YouTube station. We've been on Next Steps Academy. There's still episodes from before on there, but starting this year, we went to a Phase 4 podcast channel. And reach out to Yuki Yoshii. You've heard this conversation. If you know me, all the things he's talking about are totally aligned, the same mentors, the same tools. Reach out to him and have that conversation, especially if it resonates. And if you feel like you're called for something more, It's because you are. And so, Yuki, I always ask everyone this question. This is the Phase 4 podcast. And Phase 4 in the 6 phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani is about creating your future 3 years out. So, where is Yuki 3 years from today?
Ooh, 3 years from today, I am actually all over the world, if that's what you mean. And that's a lifestyle that I really enjoy, to not have a specific location, not to have a specific timeline. Yeah. And then enjoy the world. And I see the school group expanding because we are creating a movement to create a higher state of consciousness. I see 10,000, number 10,000 there.
I love it.
Yeah. But we're creating a meaningful group and community.
For soul purpose and soul ascension?
Yeah. Yeah. For people to really live fully.
I think that question is powerful. The way we were talking earlier about curiosity, this one is possibility. And those two things, like, they allow you to dream and explore. I think, is it Norway, one of those Scandinavian countries, kids who get in trouble with the law, instead of sending them to jail, they give them a choice. Either go to jail or you can go to acting school. And the idea is that these kids go to acting school and they do Shakespeare. And then they try on these characters and different words and vocabulary and vernacular. And then all of a sudden they become a different person and they're playing with possibility and something that they never thought of. And it changes the direction of their life. And the recidivism rate is like really low. And it's like, wow, what a great idea.
Yeah. I never heard that, but that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So I guess before I ask my final question, is there anything I didn't cover that you want to talk about? Usually let people take it away wherever they want. So if it's a message of hope or a message of inspiration, if you have something to sell, or wrap it all together however you want.
Well, I actually want to thank you for doing this. You said that it's episode 202. I can see and feel your passion and desire to deliver this message to the world. So gratitude to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And then my final question is always, how can people reach you?
I think Instagram will be good. It's my full name, Yuki, Yuki, last name Yosh. There are 2 I's at the end. And then the second place would be Soul Purpose School Group. If you type Soul Purpose Group in school, it should come up and you'll see my face.
We will put all those in the links, in that school with a K.
Yeah, school with a K. Exactly.
All right. Yuki, I'm so grateful for your time. This was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Great.